Alrighty, well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Please let us know in the chat where you're joining from. It's always fun for me to kind of see where all of our viewers are coming from, and it's nice to see, and we can kind of share that. So, my name is Veronica, and I am the customer success team lead here at Transifex, and I will be your host for today's masterclass session. I am excited to welcome our admins and our project maintainers for the first episode of our 5-part series. This is taking place every Tuesday starting from today at the same time. So join us here next Tuesday as well. In today's session, we will begin the journey into mastering Transifex for efficient project management. We have a fantastic speaker with us today, none other than Ryan Bernstein. Ryan is one of our customer success managers here at Transifex, and he's going to go ahead and guide us through the intricacies of task management. So just a reminder here at Transifex, we're here to help lift that language barrier and empower you to engage the world, and we hope that these sessions will help make that a little bit easier for everybody. So before we go ahead and dive into the content, I just want to talk a little bit about asking questions and using the chat and how that works. So feel free to use the chat for any tips or tricks that you guys have, or sharing, the way that you guys use these processes. And if you guys have any questions, there is a specific questions tab at the bottom right-hand corner. If you guys use this, it'll just help us easily spot the questions and address them throughout the webinar. So please feel free, no question too small, please ask away. And now, without further ado, let's welcome our special speaker, Ryan, and you now have the floor.
Thank you, Veronica. Welcome, everybody. So as was just mentioned, this training is about task management in Transifex. So who is this training for, and why is it important to them? This training is for anybody who has to manage the translation of languages regardless of their title. So your title might not be localization manager, it could be product manager, but whatever it is, if you're responsible for ensuring that source content gets translated into target languages, then managing that activity across those languages, you're effectively functioning as a localization manager. So if this applies to you, then why is this training important? Well, because managing translations can become cumbersome for several reasons, some of which include there is a lot of source content to translate, there are a lot of target languages, the translation team, the translators, reviewers is large and must be managed effectively, and there are strict deadlines for having translations available to end users. So if this applies to you, then hopefully this training will enable a greater understanding of the ways to manage the translation process. Now, looking at the agenda, what we'll be looking into are basically two main approaches for managing tasks, managing translation activity. The first is what we call Transifex tasks. If you're in our application on the dashboard, the left-hand navigation, main navigation, has a tasks item. This is what that is referring to. The second approach are other ways of managing tasks efficiently. So with each of these two approaches, we'll be exploring a few things such as key concepts, best practices, and we'll go ahead and take a look in the application to see how this works to hopefully solidify it a little bit more for everybody. So the first approach to managing tasks is what we call Transifex tasks. And there are a few ways, a few steps involved in this, all organized coherently. So first you create a task, then you set the deadlines for those tasks and subtasks. Then you select languages for those subtasks. You can assign collaborators, or you will assign collaborators, and then you can track the progress of those tasks as they progress. So let's take a look at each of these steps. And so the first thing when you're going to work with Transifex tasks is to actually create the task. This is all done in the Transifex editor. So no matter how content gets into our system, once it's there, it needs to be translated. So you'll go into the editor, and then to get to bulk actions where this create task button is, you must use the checkboxes next to the strings. So you select some strings, And there is a checkbox near the top next to the filters text box for selecting all. However, you can select any number of strings that you would like. One trick is if we would want to assign the first 100 strings, for instance, then you click the checkbox next to the first string, and then you can scroll down to the 100th string and click or hold down the shift button and click the checkbox next to that, which will select everything in between. So regardless of how you filter these strings, once you decide the strings you want translated, you click the Create Task button, and that will bring up the wizard that we see in the screenshot below. So one of the first things you'll do is to set deadlines for these tasks. So the first box there is the task type. So you notice it says review here. So Transifex has a review step that is automatically enabled and cannot be turned off. We also have an additional QA step called proofread that you can optionally enable. That is located in the workflow tab of a project settings. So if you go to the workflow tab of a project settings, you click the proofread QA step and click save. And then you'll have another option in this task type called proofread. So the options are translate, review, or proofread. We have review showing. And if you choose review or proofread, then you'll be able to enter dates for those subtasks, the review and proofread steps. So right now we're looking at the Transifex AI is going to do the translation so that the date is grayed out because it will happen almost instantly. And then you can set a date for when that review step is done. Some other fields here are just a quick description for the people that are going to be assigned to these tasks for knowing what the work entails. You have to give it a task name. Then the priority is normal, but you can change that to high or urgent. So after you enter these fields, including the dates that everything is due, then you click the next button. And then you have to select the languages for these tasks. So if you choose proofread, for instance, then there'll be subtasks for the translation step, the review step, and the proofread step. Now you have to select the languages that you would like to apply to these. So tasks are done, when you're in the editor, you're on one project at a time. So we're working in a project, and the languages that are available are the languages that are assigned to that project. So you can choose all languages or just certain languages within that project for this step. So once you select your languages, now we'll choose which collaborators are going to be assigned to this work. So the two options here are to auto-assign to team collaborators. Every project must have a team assigned to it. So if you choose this step, then we will look for collaborators that are allowed to work on languages that were just selected, and we'll assign collaborators for you. Optionally, you can also choose to skip that auto-assign and just assign collaborators after the fact. So we're going to choose to auto-assign. And then once you do that, the task will be created and you'll get a link to that task. So the pane that we're looking at now is the same thing you would get to as if in the left-hand main navigation, if you click tasks, this is that page that you will go to. And you can see that the tasks are broken down into their respective subtasks. So for Spanish that we chose, we have a subtask of translate and a subtask of review. And we can see the translation progress right from here. So we'll see that the translate subtask for Spanish is about halfway done, and the review step is not done. There are no collaborators assigned. So what we can do is just click the blank assignee avatar for the review step and assign people there. And also to manage these tasks, you can click the three vertical gray dots, and that is where you can edit the task, or you can choose to auto assign if you haven't done that, or delete the task. So all of the tasks that are created will be visible from the single pane in our tasks page. So it's an efficient way to review all of the activity and see where they are at. And I don't know about you, but I like to see things in action a little bit. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to create a task. So we're in the main dashboard area here, and I'm just on a file-based project. And then to get to the editor, I will just click translate. And I will pause here because I know I've been talking for a little bit now, so I'm not sure if there are any questions, but I will just keep moving unless somebody does have one. So now we're here, and we can choose to work on a specific resource at a time, or we can work on all resources as well. So if we just want to assign stuff for a specific resource, we can just click that resource, and there's only one in here, but there could be many more. And then we can just select any number of strings that we would like to, and then we click that Create Task button. So I'll click Create Task. Then here is that wizard that we were looking at. So here we can choose to translate, review, or proofread those different subtasks. I'll leave it at Transifex AI so it can translate it automatically and give it a task name. Set the priority, urgent, give it some description. So it's for the homepage of our help site. And then we can give it dates for these other steps. So we'll just choose some dates for these. Click apply. And then we can click next to go on to the next step to choose the languages. So we can do it across all languages or just a few languages. So we'll just pick a couple languages here. And then we can click next. And here's where we can choose to auto assign or to skip this auto assignment and choose the collaborators we want to work on these tasks. So I'll go ahead and click Create Task. It tells me the task was created. And now I'll go to that task. So this is the task menu item here, left-hand menu navigation area. And here is where this task is now. So I just created this task, and we can see that subtasks were created for each of the languages that we selected. So we have translate, review, and proofread subtasks, and we can see the progress of each. We chose Transifex AI, so some of them are already complete. If we refresh this page, there will probably be some more complete now. And now all of the translate tasks are complete automatically via AI. And then you'll see the 0% progress for review and proofread because we did not find any collaborators assigned to the team to work on these languages. So here's where we can just assign some people if we would like to. And that's how you assign people, and they will get notified automatically that they've now been assigned, and so they know to start working on these tasks. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you want to edit this task, here you can click on the 3 vertical dots, click Edit Task. Then since I didn't choose Auto Assign before, I now have that option, or I can delete the task right from here. So this is an easy way to track the progress of this task or many tasks and see at a glance where the status is of each of these tasks and subtasks. And now I'm going to pause again here because I know I've been talking for a while to see if there are any questions. And not hearing any, we're going to quickly summarize what we discussed with Transifex tasks. So why would you use Transifex tasks? Well, it's an easy and straightforward way to manage the translation process at a project level. Also, you can easily create translation tasks, break tasks down into translate, review, and proofread subtasks, assign tasks to specific collaborators, and easily manage all tasks and track their progress from that single page, that single pane of glass. So that is the first approach that we talked about, and it is an approach that we recommend. However, there are alternative ways of doing task management if you prefer to not use tasks. So what are these alternative ways of task management? Well, basically, you can do them at different levels, at a project level, a resource level, or at a string level. So let's go look at each of these different ways of doing task management. So at a project level, which again is similar to the task feature, it's at a project level, There's a slight distinction. These other alternative ways have a slight variation depending on if they're file-based projects or Transifex live projects. So we'll take a look at each of these. So for file-based projects, when new content is added, so it's a file-based, so either you're uploading a source file in our UI or calling our API to send us new content. So when that happens, Transifex will send an email notification to users such as translators and reviewers if they have that watch notification enabled. So in the screenshot above here, there's a little eye icon for each project. In the overview tab, there'll be that little eye icon. So every user, every collaborator must turn that on for each project to get these notifications. We highly recommend that. So please have your users turn on watch notifications, and we'll also send notifications when content is updated as well. So you'll have, for these watch notifications, you can configure what you want to receive in your My Profile area. There's a notification settings in your profile area, and you can configure what notifications you want to receive. We recommend having them all on so they will receive these notifications. So now new content has been added, the appropriate people have been notified, so they're starting to work. So how do you convey deadlines when this work is due? We recommend using an announcement that all users who are members of the project can see. So next to that eye icon, there's a little envelope or a little messages icon. You can click on that to create an announcement to send to all of the people on that project that this work is due by a certain date. So that is an easy way to convey the deadlines for this work. Now they've done their work. So what happens when these translations are complete? So when the translations are 100% complete, the people working on their assigned task, their assigned work, can send a message. Well, a notification is sent to the project maintainers once the work is 100% complete, and they can then use discussions, messages, or announcements to notify the reviewers. So discussions happen on a team level. So we have various ways in our system to notify people of various things or to communicate with various people. Discussions are on a team level, messages are on an individual level, and announcements are on that project level like we just discussed, or they can also be at an organization level. So we don't have time to talk about everything today. So discussions, messages, and announcements are what we recommend to communicate with the people working on these tasks. Okay, so now that they've been notified, and what do you do next? So next is the review step. So translations are now 100% reviewed because the reviewers have been notified. So now that the reviewer's work is done, we assume that these are good now to show to end users because now that they've been reviewed. So what we recommend is to use webhooks to be notified automatically that this has happened. If you're not sure what webhooks are, that's okay. If you have a technical resource that they will understand, they can configure these webhooks in our system, and then via code, they will be notified that the review step is complete, at which point they can programmatically call our API to download these translation files for use in their application. There are other ways to do this. Again, this is just a best practice that we recommend for file-based projects at a project level for how to perform this activity. Take a little pause here, see if there are any questions. If not, we'll move on to Transifex Live.
A question. Sure. If you want to look at that, we do have a question there.
Pull it up. Questions. When creating a task, I believe you mentioned the option of working with more than one resource at a time. Would you mind going over how to do that? I'm specifically wondering if there's a way to create a task that contains strings from more than one resource. Yes, we will take a look at that. Well, that's going to be coming up. It's a great question. And so that the first approach we mentioned, the Transifex tasks, I mentioned it's at a project level. It can be done at a resource or a string level as well. And we will see that here in just a minute. So that is a great question, and we will be seeing that shortly, okay? So I'm going to move on to Transifex Live projects now at a project level. So Transifex Live is an easy way to get websites translated. So you install a little JavaScript snippet on your website. We crawl the site looking for new content. So when our JavaScript snippet identifies content, it will automatically do that, of course. And then we'll send an email notification to project maintainers 8 hours after a string is detected. So why is it 8 hours? Well, because our code JavaScript could be constantly detecting new content. So we don't want to be spamming project maintainers every single time a new string is detected on a website. So we batch these up and send them 8 hours at a time. So the project maintainer can then approve or ignore the new strings. Why would you ignore a string? Well, if it's your company name, then you would not want that translated, right? You don't want if you're Apple, you don't want Apple translated. So it's always going to stay Apple. So you ignore that. So it's not available for a translation in the editor. But most content will be approved because you do want to translate it. In any case, once those strings, that content is approved or ignored, then the people watching the project will be notified. And again, you must enable those watch notifications for resource updates. That's one of the options for notifications. And then with Live, these notifications that work is to be done are sent within an hour of the change. So we don't want people waiting 8 hours to start working on this assignment. They've been approved, work needs to happen. Now we will send a notification within an hour that they have work to do. So how can you ensure deadlines are met with Transifex Live projects? Well, there are several options, including our progress reports, translation activity reports, and the dashboard. Reporting is a whole webinar in and of itself, so we do not have time to get into all of these reports, but just at a very high level, progress reports are a snapshot in time, a current state of affairs of where the project is at. So that is what progress reports are for. Translation activity reports are more for how to pay your translators, your people working on these tasks. So it's a history of all of their work. That is what those translation activity, aka localization activity reports are for. And the dashboard is a quick view across all of your projects to see across all of your projects, where are you at? What percentage of strings are translated, reviewed, etc. So that's a very quick, high-level overview of these reports. Okay, so what do you do when translations are complete now in a Transifex Live project? So everything's been translated now. You want to make it available to end users. Well, in Transifex Live, you publish these translations. So you pull up the little sidebar in Transifex Live and click Publish. And I realize everyone may not understand what we're talking about here. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at a Transifex Live project. So to create a Transifex Live project, it is very simple. Just click Create New Project. Now we'll bring up the wizard where you can give it a name. I'm just going to give it a quick name here, Ryan 1. Choose Transifex Live because we wanted to look at a Transifex Live project. You can either create a new team or sign to an existing team. You probably already have a team created, so you can search for that team and assign it to that team, or you can choose to create a new team. And then you'll select your languages, your target languages to translate into. So we'll pick a couple of target languages, Spanish and Arabic, and then we'll click Create Project. So now that the project is created, it's going to ask you for a resource. For a Transifex Live project, a resource is a domain. So we'll just go ahead and look at the Transifex help site, so help.transifex.com, and click Create Resource. Okay, so now our resource is created. So now how do we start working with this resource? So once we get into our editor, or not our editor, once we view this website in the Transifex app, it will tell us, I haven't installed the JavaScript snippet that I mentioned before. That's okay. Just to play around with Live, you do not actually have to install that JavaScript snippet. We can play around with Live right here without having to do anything else. So you'll notice that all of these strings now have been detected. They're blue, meaning detected, and they're available to be approved by that project maintainer. So we can go ahead and approve some strings here, just covering over each of the strings, click Approve. You can also go to manage strings. So these are all the detected strings. And then we can select all and click approve, and to quickly approve all of the strings. So now they will be available in the editor for translation. Okay, so that's quickly what to do. So now the strings are in the editor. Now the translators and the reviewers can do the work that they need to do before you go ahead and publish those translations to make them available to end users. I'll pause to see if there were any more questions about this. Again, this is not a webinar on Transifex Live. I just wanted to show you that real quickly, how easy it is to play around with if you wanted to do that. Okay, so the second way to manage tasks are at a resource level. So we just talked about at a project level. Now we'll talk about at a resource level. So say like some customers of ours could have hundreds of resources within a project. And this sort of relates back to the question that was just asked. So what if you don't want to do everything in a project at once? You just want to work on a few resources at a time, or even one resource. This is how you can do that. And it's really the same as we just talked about at a project level. However, you can use what's called categories to categorize them. So if you click on a resource in the dashboard, so you're in the dashboard, you click on a project, go to resources, then you click on a particular resource, and then go to the settings. Here is where you can add categories. They're just names, so you can give it a name of like what part of the product it's for, or you can give it a category name of a person you want to translate it, translator A, or you can also give it a date. So again, the category is just a name. You can be whatever you want. So let's go ahead and quickly take a look at that. All right, so I'm going to go back to the dashboard here, and we're going to go to a project that has multiple resources, and then we're just going to click translate. All right, so now we're in here, and it's saying, do I want to pick a particular resource, or do I want to view all resources? So at first, I'll just say all resources here. And then to answer the question I was asked, so now we're in the all resources view in the editor. I can click resource, and then I can click particular resources I want to work with. So if you click each one, they'll be checked, and then you click apply, and then they'll be selected in here. So this is how you can just work with particular resources that you're interested in. So I hope that answers that question. And another little trick here, once you're in the editor, this is where translators, reviewers live in the editor. They don't really go back to the dashboard. But when you're in here, we can go back, click this little, the project you're on, Zendesk, click the little icon next to it, and that will open a tab to take us back here. So to take us back to the dashboard. So if I'm in here, and again, just to show you the categories, if I click on a particular resource, then click the three vertical dots to go to settings. Here is that view where we can add the categories, whatever we want, person's name, a date, or whatever to assign work. Okay, and then it's also possible when you're in the resources view to filter by those categories. So we have particular categories here, and then you can pick the category and you can filter for just those categories in question. So you're just looking at those specific ones here. Okay, so now we're going to come back here, and this concludes the resource level discussion. And the last thing to talk about is string level task management. I'll assume that there's no more questions. So string level task management happens via tags. So again, resource level, you can use categories. String level, you can use tags. So for file-based projects, you're going to go into the editor. You're going to use bulk actions to select strings here, however you want to filter those. And then you can add tags for whatever you want. You can put a translator's name, a team name, a date to convey a deadline. So assigning task, a person's name, conveying deadlines, use a date, and then you can filter for those tasks within the editor, filter for those tags within the editor. So if you come in here and you filter for Ryan with a due date of tomorrow, those filters that you apply in the editor become part of the URL. So you can take that URL and send it to the people working on that and say, this is the strings you're assigned to do. then the tag tells them when it's due by, and then they can start working on these strings to translate. Okay, so what do you do when the translations are complete? So the translator can inform the project maintainer, who can then again use discussions, messages, or announcements to notify the reviewers. Okay, so this is a little bit more manual, but again, we like our messaging, so discussions, messages, or announcements. And now that their work is done, the translations are 100% reviewed. Again, you can automate things using webhooks, like we've already discussed. Okay, so that's file-based projects. And for Transifex Live projects, for Transifex Live, once the strings get into the editor, once they've been approved, you can add tags to them the same way you would as a file-based project in the editor. However, with Live, you also have the ability to add tags directly in the HTML code. We have a HTML attribute called tx-tags. If you're not technical and you don't know what that means, that's okay. Your technical resource will understand. Just they should know that there's an attribute available called tx-tags. They can give a comma-separated list, and those will be imported into Transifex as a tag like any other tag. Okay, so now ensuring deadlines are met and tracking progress on Transifex Live projects. Again, you can use these filters in the editor. So, you can search for untranslated strings with a certain tag, a person's name, to see where they're at with their translation activity. And another way to track progress is for Live, a report can be built that displays the progress by tag using the API with the following endpoint. Again, this is a technical concept. Just know, if you're not technical, that it is possible to create a report via our API with these tags. So why use these other ways of managing tasks, this second approach? Well, because for workflow requirements and customization, you can tailor workflows and collaboration features to meet specific needs and team preferences. You can also automate workflows using our API, so you can integrate with the Transifex API and implement custom automation scripts for project management. That concludes the second approach we've just discussed. It doesn't sound like there are any more questions.
There actually is one more question in there.
There is another question. So, if I create a task for translations and reviews, will reviewers get notified when the translations are done so that they know when they can start working on the reviews? So if this question is referring to the first approach using Transifex tasks, which is the main navigation item here, tasks, the answer is yes, they will be automatically notified. If we're referring to one of the other ways that we just talked about of managing tasks, then that's where you have to send a notification via discussions, announcements, or messages in our system. You can do this via an email in your system as well, or via Slack notification. This is just, again, what we recommend as a best practice. So I hope that answered that question. To quickly summarize things now, why use one method over another? With the Transifex tasks, it's newer and more functionality will be upcoming. It has an easy-to-use wizard for configuring all of the steps. It gives you that single pane, that centralized management for viewing all of the tasks and where they're at. And it can be done at a project, resource, or string level as well, going back to, again, to that first question. And then for the alternative task management solutions, it's an older way of doing it, but it certainly works very well for a large number of customers. It gives you a little bit more customization, but you have to configure that, and there is a little bit more manual work to notify people to do certain things. Again, this is the workflow customization, so there's slightly different ways to convey and manage deadlines and track progress. However, it can be automated via the API, and again, it is done at a project, resource, or string level. And that's really the conclusion of the webinar. We certainly welcome any more questions that you have or comments. Please drop them in. We'll see. There is another, okay, I was referring to the first approach. Okay, got it. And I think that seeing that there are no more questions. If somebody would like to
Looks
see
like a new
something,
one just came in.
new one just came in.
Oh,
Is there any automation to the creation of tasks? So the first approach, not yet. I believe that will be coming. I'm not sure exactly when that could be, but right now, no. You cannot use our API to create tasks as of yet. It is a feature that I've heard a couple of times, so I do believe it will be coming. But again, I'm not privy to that information exactly, so I won't. Don't hold me to that. All right. If anybody would like to see anything else in action, I'm a more of a hands-on person, so I like to see things in action. If you would like that, let us know, and we can do that quickly. We still have a few more minutes.
yeah, we'll give a little bit of time for people to type too.
I'll take a drink of water here. So I really hope that this helped to demystify some of this task management functionality. Again, if you are a localization manager or somebody functioning as a localization manager, this can be a bit overwhelming. Just know that we do have a lot of tools available via our reports, and I anticipate there'll be upcoming webinars on all of those things as well.
Looks like we have one more question.
One more. How is an assignee getting notified that a new task is created? So I'll assume this is the first approach we talked about using the official tasks feature. So when you assign somebody to it, they get an email and an in-app not an in-app. They get an email immediately, as well as they will be notified in the notifications area. Let's go ahead and look at the notifications area. So back at the dashboard here, if you click on your little avatar, go to my profile. So here is where you can configure these notification settings to figure out which kind of notifications you want to receive. Again, we recommend turning them all on, but this is where you can configure that. And then if you're wondering where those messages go, where we talked about the discussions, messages, announcements, there is a messages area here in your little avatar to go see those messages. But you'll be notified about those as well via email. Seeing thumbs up, so I believe I answered the question. And thank you for all the questions, by the way. If you're thinking about it, somebody else is thinking about it as well, so it's very helpful. Oh, is there another one? Going back to the first question, let's say I assign a tag to a few strings from different resources, and then I look up that tag through the editor. Will all of the original strings come up? So yes, if you're looking at all resources, or you just pick a few resources to look at, you can filter all resources or just the resources you selected. You can, again, use those filters any way you see fit. So you can always, so whatever view you're looking at, a single resource, all resources, a few resources, you can still filter by tag and it will still work. And you can, for the first approach, you can still create tasks across those resources, or just for those certain strings in a few resources. I hope that answered that question. I believe so. Great, thanks. Okay. These are great questions. And I think that will take us to the conclusion.
All right. right. Well, yeah, if you guys still have any more questions, we still got a few more minutes here. So I'll just go ahead and start saying my stuff, but you guys can definitely keep on typing and we'll definitely check it before we end here. But I do want to thank you, Ryan, for a wonderful presentation. And before we part ways today, again, I just want to remind everybody to register for the next few webinars that we have over the next few weeks. Next week, we're actually going to be learning about our integration with Figma. So please don't miss out on that. Make sure you guys register. It'll be every Tuesday, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern European Time. And as always, be sure to check out our help center on our Transifex website. Make your voice and be heard, right? Be a voice in our community forum. And please, if you guys have any other questions, support is here to help you guys. So please reach out. And after this call, you guys will receive a recording of this webinar and you guys will actually receive a survey. So if you have a moment, it's really quick, super sweet to the point. It would be really helpful for us if you guys take the survey. Let us know a little bit more of what you guys would like to see and we can make all of this happen in the future. So we'll just double check, make sure we have no more outstanding questions. I think all of them have been answered. So it looks like that's it from us. I hope everybody has a wonderful day ahead of you or a wonderful evening. And we'll see you back here next week at the same time for our next installment where we go over the Figma integration. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.